who's actually going to get the most out of a mid-range gaming laptop like the Acer Nitro V, and who should just keep scrolling. If you're wondering whether the price tag makes sense for a typical gamer who wants solid performance without breaking the bank, you're not alone. A lot of people jump on the hype of RTX 4050 and 144Hz screen without thinking about their own daily setup, the games they actually play, or whether the hardware will feel balanced after a few months of use. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this video I'm going to break down the real-world pros and cons, point out the hidden trade-offs, and help you decide if this is the laptop you should put your money behind or the one you should leave on the shelf. Let's start with the audience. If you're a casual gamer who mostly sticks to indie titles, a browser-based MMO, or the occasional Fortnite match, the Nitro V is probably overkill. The RTX 4050 will easily handle those games at high settings, but you'll be paying for GPU power you'll never tap. Conversely, if you're a hardcore budget gamer, someone who wants to play modern AAA titles like Cyberpunk 2077, Elden Ring, or Horizon Forbidden West at 1080p with decent frame rates, but you don't have the cash to drop $2,000 on a top-tier machine, this laptop lands in a sweet spot. It also works well for students or creators who need a solid GPU for occasional video editing or 3D rendering, because the RTX 4050's AI-driven cores can accelerate Adobe Premiere and Blender tasks without turning the whole system into a heat spike nightmare. Now, who should skip it? If you're a professional gamer looking to stream 4K content while maintaining 144Hz gameplay, the Nitro V's 8GB of DDR5 RAM quickly becomes a bottleneck. You'll start seeing stutters in demanding titles when you push background streaming software, and upgrading the RAM isn't cheap on this model. Also, power users who need a laptop that can replace a desktop workstation for heavy multitasking will find the 512GB Gen 4 SSD cramped once they add a few large game installs and creative project files. For those folks, a higher-tier model with 16GB RAM and at least a 1TB SSD would feel more future-proof. Let's talk about the practical strengths. First, the display. A 15.6-inch FHD IPS panel with a 144Hz refresh rate is a noticeable upgrade over the 60Hz screens you find on most budget laptops. During fast-paced shooters, that extra 84Hz makes motion look smoother and reduces ghosting. I tried a 5-minute session of Apex Legends, and the difference between 60Hz and 144Hz was immediately obvious, especially when tracking enemies sprinting across the map. The IPS technology also keeps colors consistent at side angles, which matters if you're streaming or just watching friends play on a shared screen. The RTX 4050 itself isn't a flagship GPU, but it does deliver playable frame rates in most current titles at medium-high settings. In my testing, Shadow of the Tomb Raider ran around 58 frames per second at 1080p with ultra textures, while the same title on a laptop with a GTX 1650 sat at the mid-30s. That translates into a smoother experience without the need to constantly dial settings down. The GPU also supports DLSS 3, so games that implement the tech can push frame rates even higher while preserving image quality. It's a nice hidden benefit that many shoppers overlook when they just read spec sheets. Another real-world advantage is the inclusion of Wi-Fi 6. In my apartment, the router is a modest AX1800, and I consistently saw sub-200 Mbps speeds during online gaming sessions, well above the typical 100 megabits per second ceiling of older Wi-Fi 5 chips. This isn't just about download speed. Lower latency and more stable connections can prevent those sudden disconnects that ruin a raid or a competitive match. Battery life is another area where the Nitro V surprises you. Gaming laptops normally get a 1-hour rating under load, and this one is no different when you crank the GPU. However, when you're just browsing, watching videos, or running lighter games like Minecraft at 30 frames per second, the 57Wh battery can stretch to 6 to 7 hours. That flexibility means you can treat the device as a regular laptop during the day and only plug it in when you actually sit down for a serious gaming session. Now for the practical weaknesses. The first one that catches most people is the heat. The Nitro V's cooling system is designed to keep the RTX 4050 from throttling, but on a small chassis it has to work hard. During a prolonged 30-minute session of Red Dead Redemption 2, the laptop's fan ramps up to near maximum and the chassis becomes noticeably warm. Even the palm rest area can feel hot after an hour. The fan noise is also a factor. You'll hear a whirring buzz that can be distracting if you're trying to stream or record without external microphones. Another downside is the limited RAM. 8 GB of DDR5 sounds modern, but it fills up quickly with newer games that recommend 16 GB. When I launched Assassin's Creed Valhalla with the recommended settings, the system swapped to the SSD.